They say some places remember pain. St. Margaret's Memorial Hospital had a room that wouldn't let go. What if I told you there's a delivery room where labor never ends, where the screams from 1987 still echo through the walls at 3:47 a.m. every single night, where nurses refuse to enter after dark and doctors cross themselves before checking the fetal monitor that hasn't been plugged in for decades. This is the story of Labor Room 13, and if you're pregnant or planning to be, you might want to turn back now. St. Margaret's Memorial Hospital sits on the outskirts of a town I won't name, not because I'm trying to be mysterious, but because the hospital is still operational, still delivering babies, still using every room except one. Labor Room 13 was sealed in March of 1987. The official reason? Structural concerns. But structural concerns don't explain why the door was welded shut from the outside. Structural concerns don't explain why the hospital's blueprints were redrawn to pretend the room never existed. Rebecca Chen was 39 weeks pregnant with her first child. She'd done everything right: prenatal vitamins, birthing classes, a carefully planned hospital bag with 3 different outgrowths for the baby, depending on the gender. She didn't know if she was having a boy or girl. She wanted it to be a surprise. At 11:32 p.m., her water broke. By midnight, she and her husband David were at St. Margaret's, being wheeled down the fluorescent-lit hallways to the maternity ward. The night nurse, Caroline Hewitt, she's still alive, by the way, though she hasn't spoken about that night to anyone but me, she assigned Rebecca to room 13. It was the only one available. 3 other women were in active labor that night. Valentine's Day babies, they joked. Caroline remembers Rebecca's first words when they wheeled her in. "It feels wrong in here." The room was identical to all the others. Same pale green walls, same monitoring equipment, same adjustable bed. But Rebecca was right, something was wrong. Labor progressed normally at first. Contractions every 7 minutes, then 5, then 3. David held Rebecca's hand. The fetal monitor showed a strong, steady heartbeat, 145 beats per minute. Perfect. At 2:17 a.m., Dr. Patricia Moss checked Rebecca's dilation. 7 centimeters. "You're doing great," she said. "Baby should be here by sunrise." But at 2:33 a.m., something changed. Rebecca started screaming. Not the screams of labor pain, but something else. Something primal. She was staring at the corner of the room, eyes wide, hyperventilating. "There's someone standing there," she gasped between contractions. "There's a woman in the corner. She's pregnant. She's bleeding." David looked. The corner was empty. Dr. Moss looked. Empty. Nurse Caroline checked. Nothing but shadows and the humming of the fetal monitor. "It's the pain," Dr. Moss reassured her. "Sometimes labor can cause hallucinations. You're doing fine." But the fetal monitor disagreed. The baby's heartbeat had jumped to 180 beats per minute, then 190, then 200, impossibly fast. Dr. Moss ordered an emergency C-section. Rebecca's blood pressure was spiking. The baby was in distress. They needed to get the child out now. But as they prepped for surgery, Rebecca grabbed Dr. Moss's wrist with a grip so tight it left bruises that lasted for weeks. "She says it's her baby," Rebecca whispered, her eyes still fixed on that empty corner. "She says I can't have it. She says no one can have it." Her contractions stopped. Just stopped. Completely. The fetal monitor showed the heartbeat slowing. 150, 20, 90. They rushed her to the operating room. Well, they tried. But Rebecca wouldn't move. She'd gained weight. Impossible weight. David and 2 orderlies couldn't lift her from the bed. It was as if she was anchored to room 13 itself. The heartbeat kept dropping. 70, 50, 30. Dr. Moss made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her career. They would perform the C-section right there in labor room 13 on that bed with whatever equipment they could rush in. At 3:47 a.m., Dr. Moss made the first incision. Rebecca wasn't screaming anymore. She was laughing. A wet, broken sound that Caroline Hewitt says she still hears in her nightmares. "She's taking it back," Rebecca whispered. "She's taking them all back." The baby, a girl, wasn't breathing when they pulled her out. She was blue, tiny, perfect in every way, except that she was dead. They tried to resuscitate her. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. And then at 3:52 a.m., the baby gasped. Once, twice. Her eyes opened, but they were wrong. Too aware, too old. She looked at Dr. Moss, and Caroline swears to this day that the infant smiled, not the reflexive smile of a newborn. A knowing smile. The baby took one more breath, and then nothing. Flatline. Gone. Rebecca hemorrhaged massively. The blood wouldn't stop, no matter what they did. She died at 4:14 a.m., still staring at that corner, still whispering. She took her back. She takes them all back. The hospital performed an investigation. There were questions about the care, about the decisions, about why the C-section happened in a labor room instead of an OR. But those questions stopped when the autopsy revealed something impossible. Rebecca's baby, the one that died, had been dead for at least 3 days before delivery. The tissue showed signs of necrosis, of decay. But the fetal monitor had shown a heartbeat right up until the moment of delivery. A heartbeat from a baby that had been dead for 72 hours. The hospital sealed the room. Caroline Hewitt quit. Dr. Moss took a sabbatical she never returned from. David hung himself 6 months later in the garage. Valentine's Day decorations were still up. But that's not where the story ends. Because room 13 remembers. Maintenance workers report that at 3:47 a.m. every night, the fetal monitor in that sealed room turns on. They can hear it through the welded door, that steady beep, 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 getting faster, and then screaming. They've tried removing the equipment. They've cut the power to that section of the hospital. Doesn't matter. At 3:47 a.m., the monitor turns on. In 1993, a janitor named Marcus Webb broke into room 13 on a dare. He lasted 14 minutes before he was found in the hallway, catatonic, his hair turned completely white. When he finally spoke 3 days later, he only said one thing. She's still in labor. She'll always be in labor, and she's not alone anymore. I've spent months researching this story. I've talked to Caroline Hewitt, who still won't set foot in hospitals. I've read the sealed medical records. Don't ask me how I got them. I've walked those halls at night. And I found something the hospital doesn't want you to know. Rebecca Chen wasn't the first. She was the 7th. Since St. Margaret's opened in 1952, 7 women have died during childbirth in that specific room. 7 babies have been stillborn there, all on Valentine's Day, all at 3:47 a.m. The hospital kept moving the room numbers around, redesignating spaces, trying to break the pattern. But the room knows what it is. The room remembers. The first death was in 1952, a woman named Catherine Mills, 23 years old. She died in labor, bleeding out while screaming about a figure in the corner. A pregnant woman, she said, begging for the baby. I found records going back further. Before St. Margaret's was a hospital, the building was a home for unwed mothers. And before that, in the 1890s, it was the private residence of Dr. Elias Whitmore, a physician who offered discreet services to women in difficult situations. In the exact location where Labor Room 13 would eventually be built, there was once a basement room, a room where Dr. Whitmore performed illegal procedures, abortions, late term. Sometimes the women survived, often they didn't. In 1897, a woman named Eleanor Whitmore, the doctor's own wife, died in that basement room. She was 8 months pregnant. The baby died with her. Dr. Whitmore claimed it was a tragic miscarriage, but the neighbors heard screaming that night. Screaming that lasted for hours, screaming that some say never really stopped. St. Margaret's Memorial Hospital still operates. They've had no deaths in the maternity ward since 1987. They'll tell you their safety record is exemplary. But at 3:47 a.m., if you're walking those halls, you'll notice something. The nurses all cluster at one end of the ward. They don't walk past the section of wall that's painted a slightly different shade of green than the rest. The section where room 13 used to be. And if you press your ear against that wall at exactly 3:47 a.m., you'll hear it. The fetal monitor, beeping faster and faster and faster. And underneath it, if you listen very carefully, you'll hear a woman crying, begging, asking for her baby back. Eleanor Whitmore has been in labor for over a century, and she's still waiting for her delivery. They say some places remember pain. St. Margaret's Memorial Hospital has a room that won't forget. Labor Room 13 doesn't exist on any floor plan, but it exists somewhere, waiting, listening for the sound of a heartbeat that doesn't belong. And every Valentine's Day at 3:47 a.m., someone goes into labor.